Have you ever felt like your mind is tearing you apart even when you think you're in control? You think, and overthink, but still find yourself stuck in the same place. Doubt paralyzes you. Fear consumes you. Anxiety traps you in a prison built inside your own head. And the worst part, you don't even notice. You've grown so used to the mental chaos that you don't realize you're sinking deeper and deeper. It feels like everything you try only pulls you further from what truly matters. How long will you allow yourself to be a prisoner of your own mind? Most people don't see it, but the biggest enemy isn't out there. It lives inside you, fed by fears and insecurities that you've created. You're stuck in a dark mental tunnel where the way out seems far away. But let me tell you something. You can escape. Stoicism gives you the keys to this invisible prison. It's not about running from problems, it's about regaining control of your mind, silencing the voice of fear and doubt, and taking back the reins of your life. Because here's a truth few admit. If you don't master your mind, it will destroy you. And only you have the power to change that. Now let's begin. But first, I want to tell you a story that will help you realize that the greatest battle in life is not against the world, but against yourself. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Samuel. As a child, he believed he could achieve anything if he just worked hard enough. But as he grew older, doubt began to creep into his mind. He saw others succeeding and asked himself, why not me? Insecurity took root, and with it, the fear of failure. He started putting off his dreams, avoiding risks, always thinking, what if the timing isn't right? What if everything goes wrong? These questions began to dominate his thoughts. One day, during a moment of solitude, Samuel found himself sitting alone on a park bench. The soft breeze rustled the leaves, yet inside him, there was only silence. His mind locked in a dark, windowless room. He remembered his childhood dreams, how powerful he felt when he believed in himself. But now his mind was ruled by fear, his anxiety so strong it kept him from acting. That's when he realized the real obstacle wasn't out there, it was inside his head. Just then, an elderly woman sat beside him on the bench. She gave him a warm smile, unaware of what he was going through, and said, you know, dear, I spent most of my life worrying about what could go wrong. I was afraid of the future, of making the wrong choices. But after many years, I finally understood something important. Fear, doubt, anxiety, they aren't real. They're ghosts we create in our own minds. And while we're frozen by them, life keeps moving, and opportunities pass us by. Samuel looked at her, deeply moved. She stood up, gently patted his shoulder, and walked away, disappearing into the trees. He sat there for a while, reflecting. Her words echoed in his mind. Fear isn't real. In that moment, Samuel finally saw it. He had been imprisoned by his own thoughts. He let his doubts and fears dictate his actions, or lack of them. He had never faced a real external monster. His greatest enemy had always been his own mind, overflowing with hesitation and limitation. And it was right there, on that park bench, that Samuel made a promise to himself. He would stop letting fear hold him back. He would face life head-on, realizing that mental suffering can be more destructive than any real-world challenge, and that to live fully, he had to take back control over his thoughts. Now it's your turn. Make a commitment to yourself. Decide to leave behind everything that holds you back and keeps you stuck. Write in the comments, today, I choose to let go of everything that holds me back, and start reclaiming your life right now. So, let's begin with a question. What if your fears are nothing more than illusions? Let me ask you something. How many times have you stayed up all night worrying about something that never even happened? How often did you stress yourself out imagining the worst-case scenario, only to discover that everything turned out fine? Or worse, nothing even happened at all. Picture an elite athlete before a major competition. For weeks, he can't sleep. He imagines tripping just before crossing the finish line. He feels the weight of thousands of eyes watching him fail. He sees it so clearly in his mind, it's as if he's already lost. But when race day comes, none of that happens. He runs like he always has. He gives it his all, and to his surprise, everything goes smoothly. So what were those sleepless nights for? And now I ask you, how many times have you been that athlete? Worrying about situations that never became real? Don't worry, you're not alone. As the Stoic philosopher Seneca said over 2,000 years ago, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. Think about it. Most of our fears aren't real. They're mental projections. We worry about what others might think, what might go wrong, everything that could fall apart, and most of the time none of it happens. It's as if our mind is a horror movie director, constantly creating the worst-case scenarios, setting traps that don't exist, convincing us that something terrible is just around the corner, when in truth life is much simpler than that. But why do we do this? Psychologists have a name for this mental torture: anticipatory anxiety. And here's something interesting. According to psychologist Ethan Kross, author of Chatter, Our minds act like paranoid assistants, constantly preparing for emergencies, even when there's no sign of danger. Why? Because the brain believes that imagining the worst will make us more prepared. It's like having a personal assistant that whispers all day, "Watch out, something bad could happen today." And when nothing happens, they don't apologize. They just invent a new disaster. And there you are, mentally exhausted by things that never even existed, again and again. I'm sure this has happened to you. You check your phone and see someone hasn't replied to your message, and your mind goes wild. Are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Hours go by, and when they finally respond, they say, "Sorry, I was at the gym." And suddenly, it hits you. You wasted all that energy worrying about something that didn't even exist. So let me ask you, how many more times are you going to let this happen? If you want to take back control of your mind, the first step is breaking this cycle of unnecessary suffering. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, had a simple but powerful habit when negative thoughts overwhelmed him. Does this truly matter? Will this still matter a year from now? Think about it. Will what's bothering you today still matter in 12 months? What about in 5 years? If the answer is no, then it doesn't deserve even one more minute of your time. If the answer is yes, then worrying won't solve it. Action will. Here's the key. Worry changes nothing. Action does. So the next time your mind starts crafting another horror story, stop and ask yourself, is this a real problem? Or just my mind playing tricks on me? It's time to do something different. Stop imagining disasters and start building real solutions. Use your energy to move forward, not to fight battles that only exist in your head, because life won't wait for you to outgrow your fears, but it will reward every step you take despite them. Remember this, what you feed your mind grows. Your thoughts are like seeds. If you keep watering fear, don't be surprised when anxiety takes over your garden. Now let me share something I learned from a friend. A while ago, he planted an orange tree in his backyard. He cared for it, watered it, protected it from the cold. It started growing strong, but eventually he got careless. A few missed days of watering turned into weeks. It's a tough tree. It'll survive, he thought. What he didn't see was that underground the roots were weakening. By the time he tried to fix it with extra water and care, it was already too late. That's exactly how our minds work. If you keep feeding yourself negativity, self-doubt, and fear, that's what will grow inside you. Think about it. If every day you tell yourself, nothing works out for me, everything is too hard, life is unfair, what kind of life do you expect to build? You can't plant weeds and expect to harvest peace. Every time you fail and say, "I'm such a mess," or "this is impossible," you're programming your brain to give up before you even try. And here's the truth. If you keep giving space to your worst thoughts, don't expect good outcomes to grow from them. This isn't magic. It's neuroscience. If there's one book that explains this well, it's The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. But don't get it twisted. It's not about repeating good vibes only. What Peale teaches is much deeper. Your mind believes what you repeatedly tell it. If you constantly feed it, "I'm not good enough," your brain will accept that as truth and act accordingly. But the opposite is also true. If you shift your focus to what you can improve, what you can do, your entire life starts to shift with it. This is not about wishful thinking. It's how your brain works. So here's a truth worth remembering. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Marcus Aurelius. Don't just read that and scroll past. Write it down. Stick it on your wall. Make it your phone wallpaper. Tattoo it in your mind. Because it's not the world that needs to change. It's the story you're telling yourself. Eu pessoalmente tenho essa frase em quadro e a leio todos os dias. Because when a worry arises or when my mind tries to shift toward the negative, this phrase reminds me that I always have a choice. I can either feed the complaint or train my mind to seek solutions, opportunities, and lessons. So how can you apply this in your own life? First, notice what you're feeding. We can't change what we're not aware of. So next time you catch yourself caught in a spiral of negative thoughts, pause and ask, is this lifting me up or pulling me deeper? Second, shift your inner dialogue. It's not about repeating empty affirmations. It's about changing the narrative you tell yourself daily. Instead of saying, "I can't," try saying, "I'll give it a shot," and allow yourself to learn through the process. It may sound simple, but your mind responds to the words you feed it. Third, be more mindful of what you consume. If you spend your day surrounded by dramatic news, complaint-filled timelines, and people who only see problems, what do you think that does to your mindset? Exactly. Start curating what you allow into your mental space. So tell me, what are you planting in your mind? Because if you're sowing thorns, don't expect to harvest roses. And most importantly, if you want to reclaim control over your life, start by reclaiming control over your thoughts. You are the only one who decides what gets fed. Let go of what adds no value. They say a great sculptor doesn't create a masterpiece by adding, but by removing what doesn't belong. Picture a sculptor standing before a block of marble. He doesn't start by adding more, but by chiseling away the excess. It's in subtraction, not addition, that beauty begins to emerge. Now imagine if that sculptor did the opposite. Instead of removing, he just kept adding. More rocks, more weight, more clutter. In the end, what could have been art is lost in chaos. So let me ask you, how many times have you done this in your own life? Holding on to old resentments, clinging to outdated worries, feeding fears that only exist in your imagination. How can you expect to move forward lightly if you're carrying all of that? Life becomes like that shapeless block, confused and heavy, and often you don't even realize how much those extra burdens are slowing you down. Psychologist Guy Winch explains that our brain tends to cling to what's familiar, even if it hurts, rather than step into the unknown, even if it could heal us. That's why letting go of negative thoughts can feel so hard. Pain becomes comfort, complaints become habit, the weight becomes a familiar companion. But here's the truth, holding on to what hurts you is not safety, it's a self-made prison. It's not uncommon to see people carrying emotional wounds from years ago, resenting things that should have been let go long ago. But what do they gain from that? Nothing, just more heaviness, more obstacles. Letting go isn't about forgetting, it's about setting yourself free. If something still stings, if a past mistake still has a hold on you, ask yourself, is it truly worth carrying this burden any longer? As Cicero said, we only truly possess the present. Nature gave us the now, but denied us the future. So why keep living in a time that no longer exists? Now a simple exercise. Grab something near you, a stone, a leaf, any small object. Hold it for a moment. Mentally link that object to something you're carrying that's been weighing you down. Now let it go. Release it. Put it back where you found it. That's exactly what you need to do with what no longer serves you. Let it go. Without drama, without attachment. Just move on. Because as long as you insist on clinging to emotional baggage, your life won't take off. It will remain unfinished, suffocated by what shouldn't be there, and the more you carry, the heavier the journey becomes. It's not what happens, it's how you choose to see it. If you want to reclaim control of your life, the first step is to remove what no longer serves you. Grudges, fears, worries that only take up space. Get rid of the weight to create room for what truly matters. Lightness, clarity, purpose. But here's something even more powerful. Realizing that it's not the event itself, but your perception of it, that defines the experience. Picture this. You're walking down a path and a rock appears in your way. It's just a rock, but you can see it in two ways. As an obstacle that will slow you down, or as a chance to test your ability to navigate around challenges. The rock doesn't change, but the way you see it changes everything. Your behavior shifts, your outcome changes. Life is full of things beyond your control, but how you react to them, that's your choice. That's the core of Stoic philosophy. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." You might be waiting for an important answer. When it comes, it's not what you hoped for. You feel frustrated, defeated, like you failed. But what if you looked at it differently? What if that wrong answer was actually a sign you can improve, a chance to prepare better for the next opportunity? Sometimes what hurts the most isn't the event, it's the story you told yourself about it. When someone criticizes you, you can either take offense or use it as a tool for growth. If you fail, you can see it as the end, or the beginning of something new. Life isn't just a series of events, it's the story you choose to tell about each of them. And the more you decide to see challenges as lessons, the stronger you become, more resilient, more aware, more in control. So next time you're facing something hard, ask yourself, how am I seeing this? Shift the lens. Choose the perspective that strengthens you, because the event might be the same, but who you become through it, that's entirely up to you. Your energy is precious. Protect it like treasure. Imagine you have a water well in your backyard. That well represents your energy. Now imagine you start wasting that water, pouring some here, spilling some there, watering things that don't need it. Little by little, the well dries up, not because it was weak, but because you didn't use it wisely. Your mental, emotional, and physical energy works the same way. It's limited. Every time you get involved in pointless arguments, worry about what you can't control, or dwell on the past, you spend energy unnecessarily. Epictetus reminded us, don't seek for events to happen as you wish, but wish for them to happen as they do. In other words, stop wasting energy trying to control what's out of your hands. Use your strength for what is, your reaction, your attitude, your choices. Every negative thought, every draining conversation, every unfounded worry is like a sip of water wasted. And worse, when the moment comes that you really need your strength, it's no longer there. Energy is one of your most valuable resources, and unlike time, it doesn't come back the same way. So learn to protect it. Stop feeding endless conflicts. Stop clinging to people who only drain you. Stop surrendering to fears that don't make sense. Marcus Aurelius reflected on this. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. So use that power wisely. Spend your energy on what builds, on what brings you closer to who you want to become. Because at the end of the day, the question isn't how much energy do you have, it's where do you choose to put it? That is, you can choose where to invest your energy, into what builds you or what consumes you. By learning to discern, you begin to save your energy for what truly matters, whether it's your personal growth, your relationships, or your goals. Think about your priorities. What is really worth spending your energy on? Are you putting your strength into situations and people that bring you growth, or are you merely reacting to what comes from outside without direction? When you begin to redirect your energy toward what is essential, you start creating a more focused, more balanced, and more rewarding life. So, my friend, the next time you feel drained, stop and reflect. What am I spending my energy on? Life will demand a lot from you, but by wisely choosing where to invest your energy, you'll be creating the ideal conditions to achieve what truly matters. Your energy is precious. Don't waste it. 6. Each person has their own perspective. Imagine you're in a vast field full of different paths. Every person around you is looking in a different direction, with their own beliefs, experiences, and expectations. You see something ahead of you, but your friend beside you sees a completely different landscape, even though you're standing in the same place. What you perceive is shaped by your story, your values, and the way you interpret the world. What's clear to you may be completely foreign to someone else. The truth is that each person has their own perspective on everything, and this is what makes human interaction so complex and often challenging. The philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not things that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them." In other words, what affects us is not the world itself, but the way we choose to see it. Think of the times you've gotten into arguments thinking you were right, only to realize the other person was seeing the same situation in a completely different way. How many times have you felt misunderstood, or thought others were wrong when in fact, they were just filtering reality based on their own experiences and perspectives? This difference in vision is natural. Each of us is influenced by our past, our traumas, our joys, and our convictions. This means that often what seems obvious to you might not be clear to someone else. The key here is to understand that although our perspectives are valid, they are not the only truth. And when you start to recognize that, you open space for dialogue and understanding. The problem begins when we think our perspective is the only correct one. When we do that, we build walls. Instead of trying to understand the other's point of view, we close ourselves off in our own limited vision and begin to judge and reject opinions different from our own. This creates conflicts, misunderstandings, and often even resentment. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, taught us that to live in harmony with others, we need to accept that everyone has their own way of seeing the world. He said, "What is not good for the hive is not good for the bee." This reminds us that to coexist well, we must be flexible and understand that each person has their own path and their own reasons for acting the way they do. When you start accepting people's different perspectives, you reduce both internal and external conflicts. Instead of fighting against someone else's opinion, you start trying to understand, to listen, to learn. Inner peace comes when you understand that even if someone sees things differently from you, it doesn't diminish the value of your own view. It's just another way of seeing the same reality. So the next time you find yourself in a disagreement or frustration with someone, remember that this person is seeing the world from a unique and valid perspective. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but you should try to understand their point of view. In doing so, you not only open your mind, but also build healthier relationships and longer-lasting inner peace. 7. Happiness is in your hands. Imagine that happiness is a plant. It doesn't grow by chance or appear out of nowhere. It needs care, attention, and space to grow. Now imagine that you are the gardener of this plant. What you choose to do with it, will you leave it uncared for, waiting for something or someone to come water it and make it grow on its own? Or will you choose to care for it, nurturing it with the best actions, thoughts, and attitudes? Often, the pursuit of happiness leads us to look outward. We think happiness lies in the things we achieve, in the people we meet, in the places we go. We believe it depends on something external, something that needs to happen for us to finally feel happy. But the truth is, happiness isn't anywhere outside of you. It's inside you, waiting to be cultivated. The philosopher Epictetus reminds us again that it's not things that disturb us, but our opinions about them. In other words, happiness is a choice, a matter of perspective. When you begin to understand that your happiness doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on how you react to them, you begin to realize that the power to be happy is always in your hands. It's easy to look at someone else's life and think, if I had that, I'd be happy. But the truth is, everyone has their own challenges and difficulties. What we see on the outside doesn't reflect the entirety of someone's life. Happiness is not a state that depends on external factors, but on how you choose to experience the present. It lies in how you choose to react to adversity, in how you decide to deal with life's highs and lows. Marcus Aurelius, the great philosopher-emperor, had a very clear view of this. He believed that happiness is a matter of self-control and wisdom. He said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." In other words, happiness is not something you find, but something you create every day through the choices you make and the thoughts you nurture. When you begin to understand that happiness is something you can cultivate, you start to see that you are in control of your life. You don't depend on others' approval or on circumstances to be happy. You become responsible for your own inner peace. So pause for a moment and think, what are you doing to cultivate your happiness? Are you allowing fear, anger, or frustration to steal your energy and peace? Or are you taking the reins of your life, choosing to focus on what truly matters and bringing joy to your own heart? Remember, happiness is in your hands. It's not something that comes from the outside, but something you build from within. With each positive thought, each act of gratitude, each conscious choice to live in the present, you are nurturing this precious plant called happiness. And the beauty of it is that, unlike many things in life, happiness never needs to be searched for outside yourself because it already lives inside you. 8. Comparison is silently destroying you. Imagine you're running on a track. You look around and see the other runners, each with their own pace, their own way of running. Some are ahead, others slightly behind. Now ask yourself, what really matters at this moment? The answer is simple. What matters is your own pace. But what we often do is look at the other runners and get lost in comparison. We try to measure ourselves by others, and that can make us forget our own path. How many times have you caught yourself comparing your life to others? Looking at someone else's success, at friends or family members' accomplishments, or even strangers, and wondering why you haven't gotten there yet? Constant comparison can be a dangerous trap. It takes the focus off your own path and places your energy on something you can't control, others' progress. Epictetus once said, "Don't seek for events to happen as you want them to, but want them to happen as they do happen." And this also applies to comparison. Instead of constantly comparing yourself, you need to understand that your path is unique. Others' journeys may be inspiring, but they are not yours. And more importantly, other people's success does not diminish your value or your potential. The problem with comparison is that it often makes us believe we're inferior or falling behind. But in reality, no one knows your full journey, your struggles, your sacrifices. Each person's life is their own story, with victories and failures that only they truly know. Comparing yourself is an invitation to frustration and dissatisfaction, because you'll always be looking at what others have or have done, instead of recognizing what you've already achieved. When you compare yourself to others, you lose the opportunity to celebrate your own victories, no matter how small they may seem. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius believed that true inner peace comes from looking at yourself and understanding what you can control. What is within your power is not what others do, but how you respond to what they do. That means that instead of comparing yourself, you should focus on your own evolution. How can you become a better version of yourself every day? Remember, comparison is not only unfair to you, but also to others. No one knows the internal battles each person faces. Instead of comparing yourself, make your own journey the measure of your success. That means focusing on your personal growth, your achievements, and most importantly, on what truly matters to you. So next time you feel the urge to compare, stop and think, what have you already accomplished? What is your own pace? When you stop looking sideways and focus on your own path, you'll realize you are exactly where you need to be. Uncertainty is an opportunity, not an obstacle. Imagine you are in the middle of a dark road not knowing what lies ahead. You have no map, no clue what the next step will be, but somehow this road still calls to you. Many people, when faced with uncertainty, immediately feel uncomfortable, insecure, and even paralyzed. The fear of the unknown can be overwhelming. But what if uncertainty is actually a doorway to something new? A chance for growth. Life is full of uncertainties. No matter how much you plan or how prepared you are, the future will always be unknown. But instead of seeing it as a barrier that prevents you from moving forward, uncertainty can be a disguised opportunity, a call to reinvent yourself and explore possibilities you never imagined. It is in the unknown that the greatest opportunities for transformation arise. Historical philosophers like Seneca always emphasized that uncertainty is a natural part of life. He said, "It is necessary to live according to nature, and nature is full of uncertainties." The great mistake many people make is trying to control what is beyond their reach. Stoicism teaches that true inner peace comes when we accept uncertainty as part of life and stop fighting it. When we stop seeing uncertainty as an enemy and start seeing it as an opportunity for learning, the world opens up in a different way. Think about the times you've faced uncertainty. At first, fear might have been strong and the discomfort overwhelming. But when you allowed yourself to explore new possibilities, unexpected things began to happen. You may have discovered new paths, learned new skills, or even found yourself in emotional and spiritual places you never imagined before. Uncertainty often leads us to growth because it is when we don't know what's ahead that we are forced to look inward and adapt. Epictetus reminds us that life is like a blank book, and it's up to us to write the pages with our choices. When we face uncertainty with courage, we are writing a new story, a story that is ours to build. And contrary to what many believe, it is exactly on uncertain ground that the greatest innovations, changes, and discoveries emerge. Without uncertainty, there is no evolution. Without the unknown, there are no new possibilities. So next time you face uncertainty, pause for a moment and breathe. Ask yourself, how can this uncertainty help me grow? Instead of seeing uncertainty as a barrier, see it as an opportunity to open new paths, to challenge yourself, and to discover what you are capable of when you don't have all the answers. Uncertainty is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. Every step taken into the unknown is a chance for evolution, a chance to turn fear into action and doubt into clarity. So remember, uncertainty is an opportunity, not an obstacle. Embrace it, and let it guide you toward a future that, although unknown, might be far greater than you ever imagined. The past is a lesson, not a prison. Imagine you're walking down a long road. As you move forward, the terrain becomes more challenging, and you begin to stumble over rocks and obstacles. But when you look back, you see the road you've traveled, the stones you've already overcome, and the mistakes you've made. Now think, are you going to keep looking back while trying to walk forward? Or will you use everything you've learned back there as a guide to move ahead, without staying stuck in what's already past? The past can often become a burden. We cling to failures, to mistakes, to things that didn't work out as if they define who we are. But the past is not a prison, it's a lesson. It wasn't made to keep us captive, but to teach and strengthen us. The real problem arises when we let the past dictate our present actions, trapping us in cycles of regret or remorse. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said, "What happened, happened as it did, and now it is part of history. What you do with it is what truly matters." In other words, we can't change what has already happened, but we can choose how we respond to it. What matters is not the mistake made, but what you learn and how you transform from it. Every mistake, every failure, every pain lived in the past is an opportunity for learning. If you look at your story from the perspective that it's here to teach you something instead of punish you, you'll realize that the past has no power to hold you back. It is just a turned page, not a burden you need to carry. The past exists to show us what we can. 10. Improving and identifying where we can grow is important, but it should not be used as a map that guides us toward a future of limitations. When you cling to the past, you miss the chance to live in the present. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius reminded us that true freedom lies in letting go of the past and focusing on what we can control, the now. The present is the only thing you can truly shape, and it's in the present that you have the power to transform your life. By constantly looking back, you miss the opportunities right in front of you. So, next time a past mistake tries to trap you, ask yourself, what did I learn from this? How can I use this experience to improve today? Life isn't about never making mistakes. It's about learning and growing from them. The past is a lesson, not a prison. Let it guide you to wisdom, not guilt. When you stop clinging to what has already passed, you make room for what is yet to come. And it's here, in the present, that you have the power to build the life you desire. So free yourself from the past and use it as a springboard to leap toward a freer, more fulfilling future. 11. Thinking is important, but action is essential. Imagine you're planning to build a house. You spend days thinking about the design, the materials, the layout. You visualize every detail, dream about your future home, and get lost in possibilities. But while you're immersed in planning, there's one fundamental thing you've forgotten to do: start building. You could spend years dreaming of the perfect house, but without laying the first brick, it will never become real. The same logic applies to life. Thinking about what we want to achieve, reflecting on our goals, and planning for the future is, without a doubt, important. But without action, all that thinking remains only in the world of ideas. It never becomes reality. True transformation happens when we move from thought to action. The philosopher Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it. And reaction, in this case, means taking action, turning thought into something tangible, something that changes the course of our lives. Often, we get stuck in an endless loop of planning. We think of all the possible ways to achieve our goals but always delay the start. I'm not ready yet. I need more information. I don't think it's the right time. Our mind becomes a fertile field of ideas, but the seeds are never planted. The problem is, life doesn't wait. Time won't pause until you feel 100% ready. And while you're only thinking, the world around you keeps moving. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher emperor, reminded us that what truly matters is not what we know or think, but what we do. He said, "What you do is all you truly own. Your actions define who you are. It doesn't matter how much you've planned or reflected on your goals. Without action, success will never come. Thinking is fundamental, but action is what turns dreams into reality. The mistake is believing that thinking about something is the same as doing it. It's not. Thought is the fuel, the inspiration, but action is the engine that sets everything in motion. If you have a dream, a goal, or an aspiration, don't let it remain just a thought. Turn it into daily action, even if small. Each step, each decision toward your goal is a solid brick in building a fulfilled life. So next time you feel the urge to plan something, remember, don't wait for the perfect moment to start. Don't wait for perfection. The secret is in acting, even if conditions aren't ideal. Action creates movement, and movement takes you to your desired destination. Thinking is important, but action is essential. Don't let fear or doubt paralyze you. Start, even without all the answers, because real change only happens when you take action. 12. Your mind is a sacred space. Decide who gets in. Imagine your mind is a temple. Inside it lies your peace, your beliefs, your values, and your deepest emotions. Now think, would you let just anyone enter that temple? Would you allow any thought or external influence to contaminate the purity of your sacred space? If you saw your mind as a sacred place, you'd likely be much more careful about who or what you allow in. The truth is, our mind is one of the most powerful places we possess. It's the center of our actions, choices, and often our happiness. Yet we often allow everything and everyone to have free access to it. We let in negative people, destructive comments, and even harsh self-critical thoughts without resistance. And by doing that, we forget. The quality of what enters our mind shapes the quality of our lives. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher, taught that we shouldn't allow negative thoughts to take over our minds. He said, "We cannot choose the events that happen to us, but we can choose how we react to them." This directly applies to what we choose to allow into our minds. We can't control all external influences, but we can decide how we react to them. And more importantly, we can choose which ones we allow to occupy our mental space. Often we get stuck in toxic conversations, criticism that doesn't help, or even feelings of inadequacy imposed on us by others, sometimes unintentionally. When that happens, we're allowing these intruders to invade our mental temple, stealing our peace and clarity. But you have the power to decide who or what enters your mind. You can choose not to react to negativity, not to give space to fear, not to let others' opinions define who you are. Marcus Aurelius also reminded us, if someone does you wrong, don't react as if that wrong is truly harmful to you. In other words, you control your reactions, and therefore you control what you do with what enters your mind. You have the right to protect your mind. It is a sacred space, and only you can decide who or what deserves to be there. Be selective with what you consume, with the people you engage with, and even with the thoughts you nurture. By protecting your mind, you protect your inner peace and well-being. So next time you feel like someone or something is invading your mental space negatively, remember, you have the power to push it away. Choose consciously what you allow into your mind. Choose to preserve your sacred space so that it holds only what strengthens you, uplifts you, and brings you closer to the best version of yourself. 13. True strength comes from within. Imagine you're carrying a heavy burden on your back. With each step, the load feels heavier. Your muscles ache and exhaustion builds. But instead of letting this weight go, you start to believe you must carry it no matter what, like it's a part of who you are. The problem is, the weight isn't real. It's in your mind. If you could see clearly, you'd realize that true strength was never in the burden, but in your ability to let it go. True strength doesn't lie in physical endurance or how much external difficulty we can handle. True strength is within us, in our minds. It's in how we choose to respond to life's challenges. No matter how much the outside world tries to test us, what truly matters is how we remain anchored in our essence, how we respond to pressure, and how we use adversity to grow. Epictetus reminds us again that we can't control external events, but we can control our reactions. He said, "Strength doesn't come from what you can do, but from how you handle what you cannot control." In other words, Real strength is not about resistance, it's about resilience. It's about grace under pressure. It's about letting go of what weighs you down and holding on to what lifts you up. It's not about what the world imposes on us, but about how we strengthen ourselves internally in the face of difficulties. Life often puts us to the test, challenges us, makes us face moments of pain, fear, and frustration. And it is in these moments that true strength emerges, not in the desire to fight what is inevitable, but in the ability to accept, learn, and move forward. True strength lies in not giving up, in continuing even when everything seems difficult, and in using difficulties as fuel to become more resilient. When you understand that strength comes from within, you begin to realize that no matter how many obstacles appear in your path, you have the power to overcome them. Strength is not about avoiding problems, but facing them with courage, confidence, and wisdom. You have the ability to choose how to deal with challenges, to decide whether you will be the victim or the protagonist of your story. True strength is silent. It doesn't need external recognition. It's not a force that screams or imposes itself on others, but an inner strength that manifests through calmly determined actions. It comes from your ability to maintain inner peace, even when external storms are strong. So next time you feel like you're carrying a heavy burden or facing a hardship, remember, true strength is not in how much you can endure, but in the courage to continue, to keep going regardless of the obstacles. The strength is within you. It always has been, and it is what will guide you through any challenge. Inner peace begins with what you choose to cultivate. Imagine your mind is like a garden. Every day you have the opportunity to plant something new. Some seeds are of serenity, others of anger, some of gratitude, others of frustration. Each thought, each emotion is like a seed that you choose to plant and nurture. Now think, what are you cultivating in your mental garden? Inner peace is not something that simply appears. It is the result of what you decide to cultivate within yourself. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded us that our mind is the only territory over which we have total control. He said, "Peace is the only good that is sufficient unto itself." And this peace doesn't come from what happens in the external world, but from what we choose to nurture in our own mind and heart. When you allow negative thoughts or destructive emotions to dominate your internal space, you are in a way planting weeds. Anger, fear, and insecurity, if left unchecked, grow and spread, taking over your garden. But when you choose to cultivate patience, gratitude, and forgiveness, you are creating fertile ground for inner peace to flourish. The challenge is that often we let ourselves be carried away by circumstances and external stimuli. We allow the opinions of others, criticisms, and daily problems to define our emotional state. But inner peace comes when you decide not to be ruled by what happens around you. It is cultivated within you, in how you respond to what is outside your control. Epictetus taught us that although we cannot control external events, we can control our reactions to them. When someone criticizes you, or when things don't go as planned, you can choose how to react. Instead of reacting with anger or frustration, you can choose calm, understanding, and reflection. You have the power to choose how to plant and nurture the thoughts that inhabit your mind. Just as a gardener cares for the soil, waters the plants, and removes weeds, you need to care for your mind. Protect it from toxic thoughts and strive every day to cultivate what brings peace and serenity. Inner peace is not something you achieve all at once, but a daily practice. A constant choice to keep your mental garden healthy. So the next time you feel agitated or disturbed, pause for a moment and ask yourself, what am I cultivating right now? If you realize you're allowing negative feelings to grow, make a conscious decision to shift your focus. Peace begins when you actively decide to cultivate what strengthens, calms, and uplifts you. The control is in your hands, and inner peace is the fruit of what you choose to nurture within. What you resist persists. Imagine you are trying to push a large rock out of your way. You strain, use all your strength, but the rock doesn't move. The more you try, the more tired and frustrated you become. Now imagine that instead of resisting with all your might, you simply step aside and let the rock stay where it is. Curiously, you realize the path ahead is free of any obstacle. What you were resisting all along was no longer blocking your progress. It was your resistance that kept you stuck. In life, we often face challenges that seem insurmountable. But what happens when we focus on fighting those challenges instead of accepting them and moving on? Resistance only makes the problem grow. The more we focus on what we cannot change, the more it seems to intensify. As Kyung said, what you resist persists. In other words, constant struggle against something tends to keep us trapped, increasing our frustration and suffering. Think of the times you tried to control or change something beyond your reach. How did you feel? Tired? Frustrated? maybe even defeated. When we cling to resistance, we end up wasting our mental and emotional energy on something we cannot control, and that only reinforces the problem. True freedom and inner peace come when we stop resisting what we cannot change. Instead of fighting circumstances, we can choose to accept and learn from them. This doesn't mean passivity, but rather a shift in perspective. Acceptance gives us the power to change our attitude toward what happens to us. When we stop fighting what already is, we can redirect our energy to what truly matters, our reaction and our next steps. Epictetus said, "It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we have about them." When we change how we view a problem, it ceases to be an insurmountable obstacle and becomes an opportunity for growth. Resistance is what keeps the problem alive, while acceptance opens the way to the solution. So next time you feel stuck in a situation or challenge, stop and ask yourself, am I resisting something I cannot change? Instead of fighting, try to understand what you can learn from it. What you resist persists. But when you let go of resistance, you make room for true transformation. True freedom lies in self-knowledge. Imagine you are trapped in a cell. You look around and see the walls, the bars, the ceiling. There seems to be no way out. But looking closer, you realize the cell door is unlocked. The key to your freedom has always been in your hands, but you never saw it because you were focused on everything around you instead of looking within. True freedom doesn't come from outside. It doesn't come from circumstances or external changes. It comes from within. Self-knowledge, the ability to understand who you are, what drives you, and most importantly, what imprisons you. Often we feel trapped by our own thoughts, emotions, and habits, and the prison is even stronger when we don't understand what keeps us captive. Socrates, the great philosopher, said, "Know thyself, and you will know the universe and the gods." Self-knowledge is the key to true freedom because when you understand your own motivations, fears, limits, and beliefs, you begin to realize that many of the prisons you find yourself in are actually creations of your own mind. The key to freedom is knowing what truly holds you back, and more importantly, how to free yourself from it. When you know yourself, you stop being a hostage to others, to external expectations, and to life's pressures. You begin to act in alignment with what is true for you, without being manipulated by other people's opinions or circumstances. Self-knowledge allows you to make conscious decisions and live in alignment with your values and goals, instead of being dragged by the current of life. Epictetus taught that it's not the things that happen to you that cause you to suffer, but how you react to them. And that reaction is often conditioned by beliefs and past experiences you still carry, but can transform by understanding them better. Self-knowledge gives you the power to choose how to react, to stop being controlled by emotions and fears, and to start acting with purpose. True freedom comes when you realize that by knowing yourself, you are no longer a prisoner of your automatic reactions or external expectations. You gain control of your life. Self-knowledge is an ongoing journey, and along the way you'll uncover new layers of who you are, becoming increasingly free to be the best version of yourself. So the next time you feel stuck or lost, ask yourself, what within me still needs to be understood? What am I avoiding inside myself? True freedom begins when you decide to look within, confront your limitations, and take the first step toward freeing yourself from everything that holds you back, because the key has always been in your hands, and it only needs to be discovered. Change begins from the inside out. Imagine you are in a dark room. You search for something, but everything around you is immersed in darkness. Then you realize that instead of trying to change what's outside, you have a light in your hands. This light is not external. It comes from within you. When you turn on this light, the darkness around you starts to fade, and you can finally see the path ahead clearly. The change you long for is not in altering external circumstances, but in transforming the way you see and react to them. True change begins from the inside out. Often we feel powerless in the face of life's difficulties, as if everything around us needs to change for us to be happy or achieve our goals. But the truth is that when we change our perception, when we decide to act differently, the world around us begins to transform. The philosopher Seneca reminds us that most of our suffering is not caused by what happens to us, but by the way we choose to react to it. When our minds and thoughts become clearer and more aligned with what we truly want, we begin to act more effectively, and external changes become a reflection of our internal transformation. Internal change is the key to external change. Often we want to change others, change the situation we're in, or even change the world around us, but we forget that the power to change lies within us, in our choices and our perception. When you start working on yourself, you begin to realize that you have the power to change any aspect of your life, as long as you are willing to look within, change your beliefs, your attitudes, and your actions. Epictetus said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happens the way it happens. Then you will be happy." This means that instead of resisting what we can't control, we can change how we react to it. True freedom lies in realizing that when we change our perspective, circumstances that once seemed insurmountable become opportunities for growth and transformation. Change doesn't happen overnight, but it begins with a step, the step of looking within and deciding what needs to be transformed in your mind and heart. Change begins when you decide to become the person you want to be, regardless of external circumstances, and from there, everything begins to align around you. So the next time you feel stuck or dissatisfied with your life, ask yourself, what within me needs to change? Because when you turn on the light of inner change, the entire path ahead becomes illuminated, and the transformation you seek begins with you, within you. I sincerely hope this message was helpful. I want to sincerely congratulate you for making it this far and finishing the video. It means that you truly want to become a better person. If you enjoyed the video, leave a comment. If you don't know the